I moved into the apartment without thinking too much about it. The rent was low, the place was quiet, and that was enough. The building itself wasn't new, but it wasn't abandoned either. People lived here. You could hear it. Footsteps, doors, distant voices behind walls. Everything felt normal. Except one thing. Apartment 23. It was right across from mine. The door was always closed. No light underneath. No sound. Nothing. At first, I didn't care. Some people are just quiet. But the longer I stayed, the more it stood out. Days passed. I moved in, unpacked, got used to the place. I started recognizing the sounds of my neighbors, who left early, who stayed up late. But 23 never changed. No footsteps. No door opening. No voices. It was like it didn't exist. And yet, it did. The first note appeared in the morning. I opened my door, and it was just there on the floor. A small piece of folded paper. I picked it up, thinking maybe it was meant for someone else. Inside, there was only one word. Welcome. No name, no number. Nothing else. I looked down the hallway. Empty. My eyes stopped on apartment 23. The door looked exactly the same as always. Still, closed, silent. For a moment, I just stood there, holding the note. Then I went back inside. Later that day, I asked the landlord. I tried to sound casual. Hey, who lives in 23? He didn't even look surprised. Someone's there, he said. Been there a long time. I haven't seen them. He shrugged. You won't. That was it. No explanation. No details. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Not in a scared way. Just curious. I stood in the hallway for a while, pretending to check my phone. Listening. Nothing. The silence from that door wasn't normal silence. It felt intentional, like it was being kept. I went back inside. The second note came the next morning. Same place. Same folded paper. This time, I opened it more slowly. You were listening. I froze. There was no way anyone should know that. I hadn't told anyone. I hadn't made a sound. I looked at the hallway again. Still empty. And again. My eyes found apartment 23. After that, I started paying attention. Not just casually. Carefully. I began to notice things I hadn't before. The dust near the door never changed. No delivery packages ever appeared there. No one knocked, but sometimes I felt like I wasn't the only one in the hallway. A few nights later, I heard something. Very soft. At first, I thought it was from another apartment. But no, it was too close. A faint sound, like something moving. A chair, maybe. From the other side of the wall, from 23. I stayed completely, still. Listening. It didn't happen again. But that was enough. For the first time, I knew someone was there. Later that night, I stepped into the hallway. It was quiet again. I stood in front of apartment 23, closer than ever before. The door looked ordinary. No marks. No signs of anything unusual. I raised my hand. I was going to knock. But I didn't. Something stopped me. Not fear. Just a feeling. Like knocking would change something I wasn't ready to understand. So I lowered my hand and went back inside. The next morning, there was another note. Waiting. I didn't even feel surprised anymore. I picked it up, opened it. Thank you for waiting. And for the first time, it didn't feel like I was alone in the building. Not really. I didn't throw the notes away. At first, I thought I would. It would have made sense. Ignore it. Move on. Treat it like some strange coincidence. But I didn't. I placed them on the table. All three of them. Welcome. You were listening. Thank you for waiting. They didn't feel random. They felt connected. That evening, I did something I hadn't planned to do. I wrote back. I don't know why. Maybe curiosity. Maybe something else. I took a small piece of paper and wrote, "Who are you?" I stared at it for a while. It looked simple. Too simple. Then I opened my door, stepped into the hallway, and placed the note gently on the floor, right in front of my apartment. Not 23. Mine. The hallway was quiet. I waited for a few seconds, nothing. So I went back inside and closed the door. I didn't sleep much that night. Every small sound felt louder than usual. Every silence felt deeper. At some point, I thought I heard movement again. Very faint, but it didn't go out this time. I just listened. In the morning, the note was gone. In its place, another one. I picked it up immediately. My hands were steady, which surprised me. Inside, it said, "I am here." I read it again. And again. Not, "I'm your neighbor." Not, "I live here." Just, "I am here." That day felt different. The apartment didn't feel empty anymore. Not in a bad way. Just shared. Like there was something else in the space around me. Not inside my apartment. But close. Very close. I started noticing patterns. The notes always appeared in the morning. Never at night. No matter when I checked before sleeping. There was nothing. And yet, every time I opened the door after waking up there, it was . So I tested it. That night, I stayed awake longer than usual. I sat near the door. Lights off. No sound. Just waiting. Hours passed. Nothing happened. At some point, I must have fallen asleep without realizing it. When I woke up, there was light coming from the window. Morning. I stood up immediately and opened the door. The note was already there, like it had always been. This time, it said, "You don't need to wait." I frowned. That didn't make sense. Or maybe it did. Just not in a way I understood yet. Later that day, I wrote again. "You can hear me?" I placed the note the same way as before. Carefully. Slowly. Like it mattered. This time, something changed. I didn't go back inside right away. I stayed. Standing in the hallway, looking at apartment 23. Waiting. For a moment. Nothing happened. Then a sound. Soft. From behind the door. Not movement this time. A tap. Just once. I froze. Then, after a few seconds, another tap. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just listened. And then, very slowly, something I hadn't seen before. A shadow. Faint. At the bottom of the door, like someone had stepped closer. From inside. I took a step back. Not out of fear. Just instinct. The hallway felt different now. Not empty. Not quiet. But occupied. I went back into my apartment, closed the door, and stood there for a long time. That night, I didn't write anything. I didn't leave a note. I just sat, thinking. The next morning, another note. Of course. I opened it. "You heard me." I exhaled slowly. So it wasn't just in my head. After that, the silence between us changed. That it wasn't empty anymore. It felt like a pause, like a conversation waiting to continue. That evening, I stood in front of apartment 23 again, closer than ever. I looked at the door. Then, quietly, I spoke, not loudly. Just enough. "Are you alone?" The hallway stayed still. No. Immediate answer. No sound. I waited. 1 second. 2.5. Then from the other side of the door, a very soft sound. Not a tap this time. Something else. Slower. Careful. 3 taps. I didn't know what it meant, but it felt like an answer. I stayed there for a little longer, then stepped back. That night felt different. Not tense. Not scary. Just aware. Like whatever was in apartment 23 was aware of me. And now, I was aware of it. The next morning, the note was already waiting. I didn't hesitate. I opened it. This time, the message was longer. Just slightly. "You are closer now." I looked up. At the hallway. At the door across from mine. And for the first time, I started to wonder not who was inside apartment 23, but how long they had been there, and why. They never left. After that message. Things didn't go back to normal. Not that they ever were. But now, it felt like something had changed permanently. You are closer now. I kept thinking about those words. Closer to what? To understanding? To them? Or to something else entirely? That day, I didn't leave my apartment much. Not because I was afraid, but because I felt like if I stayed still, I might notice more. And I was right. It started with small things. Almost UNNOTICEABLE. At some point, I realized I wasn't the only one pausing near the door anymore. In the afternoon, while I was sitting quietly, I heard it again. Not a knock. Not movement. Just presence. It's hard to explain. There was no sound, and yet it felt like someone was standing on the other side of my door. I didn't move, didn't speak. A few seconds passed, then very softly, one tap. Not from apartment 23, from my door. I turned slowly, looked at it. Nothing. No shadow, no movement. Just the door. I walked closer. Carefully. And for a moment, I just stood there, with my hand hovering near the handle. Then I spoke, quietly. Are you there? Silence. Then a pause. And after it, 2 taps. I didn't open the door. I don't know why. Maybe I felt like whatever this was, it didn't need the door to be opened. So I stepped back and waited. After a while, the feeling was gone. That evening, I wrote another note. My handwriting was slower this time. More careful. Can you come inside? I placed it on the floor. Like before. But this time, I didn't go far. I stayed just behind the door. Watching. The gap at the bottom. Minutes passed. Nothing. Then very slowly the paper moved. Not quickly. Not suddenly. It slid across the floor toward the hallway. Held my breath. A few seconds later, it stopped. Silence again. I waited longer this time. Long enough that my legs started to feel tired. And then it came. Back. The same note. Sliding back under the door. I picked it up immediately. My message was still there. But underneath it, there was something new. A second line. Not yet. I read it twice. Not no. Not I can't. Not yet. That meant something. Something specific. Something. Time. That night, I didn't sleep at all. Not because I was scared, but because I felt like I was on the edge of understanding something important. Around midnight, I heard movement again from apartment 23. This time, it was clearer. Not loud, but steady. A few steps. Slow. Measured. Then nothing. I got up. Walked to my door. Opened it. The hallway was empty, but apartment 23 felt different. There was something new. Light. Very faint, barely visible, but for the first time, there was a thin line of light under the door. I stepped closer. The air felt still. Not heavy. Just waiting. I stood right in front of the door, closer than ever before. And without thinking, I spoke again. What are you waiting for? Silence. Then from the other side, a sound. Not tapping, not movement. A voice. Very quiet. Almost like it wasn't meant to travel through the door. You? I didn't step back this time. I stayed. My hand slowly lifted. And this time, I didn't stop. I knocked. Once. The sound echoed softly in the hallway. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the light under the door shifted, like someone moved closer, and very slowly. Very carefully, something touched the other side of the door, right where my hand was. Not through it. Just mirroring. I could feel it. Not physically, but clearly. And then the voice again. Almost. The light disappeared. The hallway went back to silence. I stood there for a long time. Then finally, I stepped away. The next morning, there was no note. For the first time, nothing was waiting for me. And somehow, that felt more important than anything before. Because now I knew something was about to change. The absence of a note felt louder than anything before. For days, there'd always been something waiting for me. A word, a response. A sign. Now dash nothing. I stood in the doorway longer than usual that morning, looking down at the empty floor, half expecting something to appear if I waited just a little more. But it didn't. The hallway felt unchanged. And yet not the same. Apartment 23 was still closed, still quiet, but the silence no longer felt distant. It felt shared. That day passed slowly. I tried to focus on normal things, unpacking, cleaning, checking my phone, but everything felt slightly out of place. Like I was doing things a few seconds behind where I should be. By evening, I understood something simple. Waiting wasn't enough anymore. So I did something different. I didn't write a note. I didn't stand in the hallway. Instead, I turned off all the lights in my apartment. Sat down near the door. And listened. Not for sound. 4. Presence. At first, nothing. Then gradually, that same feeling returned. Not from the hallway. Not from apartment 23. Closer. Right on the other side of my door. I didn't move. Didn't speak. Seconds passed. Or maybe minutes. Then very gently, something changed. The door. Not opening. Not moving. But responding. It's hard to explain. It felt like the door was no longer just a barrier. More like a surface between two spaces that were becoming the same. And then, without any sound, I knew if I opened it now, something would be different. I stood up slowly, walked closer. My hand reached for the handle. This time, there was no hesitation. I opened the door. The hallway looked exactly the same. Same walls, same light, same silence. But apartment 23. The door was slightly open, just enough to notice. I froze. That had never happened before. Not once. The door to 23 was always closed. Always still. Always separate. Now, it wasn't. I stepped into the hallway. Slowly. Carefully. No sound. No movement. Just that door. Slightly open. Waiting. I approached it. Each step felt clear. Deliberate. There was no fear. Only awareness. I stopped just in front of it. Close enough to see the darkness inside. That wasn't completely dark. There was a faint light. Soft. Warm. I raised my hand, placed it on the door. And gently pushed. The door opened a little more. Inside there was a room. Simple. Quiet. Almost identical to mine. Same layout. Same walls. Same stillness. But something felt different. Not wrong. Just deeper. I didn't step in. Not yet. Instead, I stood at the threshold. Looking inside. And then I noticed something. On the floor. A note. Not outside. Not in the hallway. Inside apartment 23. Placed just a few steps in. I hesitated for a moment. Then slowly, I stepped forward, crossing the doorway. The air felt the same. And yet, not the same. Quieter. But not empty. I picked up the note, unfolded it. This time, the message was longer than before. We don't need the hallway anymore. I looked up. The room was still. Silent. But now, it didn't feel like I was visiting. It felt like I had been expected. Behind me, very softly, the door moved. Not closing. Just adjusting. Like it no longer needed to stay fully open. I turned slightly, looked back at the hallway. It was still there. Unchanged. But it felt farther away. Now, less important. I looked forward again, into the room. And for the first time, I understood something. This wasn't about the apartment or the neighbor. It was about the space between. And that space was disappearing. Somewhere deeper in the room, very softly, I heard a sound. Not a step, not a voice. Just movement, like someone turning toward me. I didn't move, and then quietly, clearly. Now, the light in the room shifted. Just slightly, and I realized this wasn't the end of the conversation. It was the beginning of something else. I didn't step back. Not when I heard the voice. Not when the room shifted. Now, the words stayed in the air. Not echoing. Not fading. Just present. I stood there. Just inside apartment 23. The doorway behind me still open. The hallway still visible. But it no longer felt like the place I came from. It felt like something I had already left. The room was quiet. Simple. Almost identical to mine. And yet, it felt more complete. I took another step forward. Slowly. Nothing changed suddenly. There was no movement. No figure. No clear presence. And yet, I wasn't alone. That feeling was clear now. Not uncertain like before. Not distant. Close. I looked around the room again, trying to notice what made it different. Then I saw it. On a small table near the wall, there were notes. More than before. Dozens of them. Carefully placed. Ordered. I walked closer. Picked one up. It looked familiar. Welcome. Another one. You were listening. Another. Thank you for waiting. I stopped. These weren't just messages. They were moments. Every step of the conversation. Every pause. Every response. All kept here. I looked at the rest. There were more I hadn't seen. You stayed. You understood. You didn't rush. I exhaled slowly. This wasn't just communication. It was observation. Or maybe recognition. I placed the note back. Carefully. And then for the first time I spoke without hesitation. Why me? The room didn't answer immediately, but the silence didn't feel empty. It felt like something was forming. Then, very softly, you noticed. I nodded. Without thinking. That was true. I didn't ignore it. Didn't walk away. Didn't try to explain it too quickly. I just stayed. And listened. The air in the room shifted slightly. Not physically, but clearly, like something was closer now. Right beside me. Not visible, but present. I didn't turn. Instead, I asked another question. Are you staying here? A pause. Then, I was. I frowned slightly. Was. That word mattered. I looked toward the door, back at the hallway, and then I understood. This place was never meant to be permanent. Not for them. And maybe not just for me either. I looked back into the room. What happens now? Silence. Then closer than before. You won't need to ask. At that moment, something changed. Not in the room. Not in the hallway. In me. The difference I had been feeling. The distance between spaces. The quiet awareness. It all aligned. The apartment. The hallway. Apartment 23. I no longer felt separate. Just connected. Like parts of the same place I hadn't noticed before. I took a slow breath, then turned and walked back toward the door. I stepped into the hallway. Everything looked the same. My door was still there. Closed. Quiet. Apartment 23 behind me. I paused for a moment, then turned back. The door was still open, but the room inside felt different now. Not distant. Not separate. Just there, like it always had been. I went back into my apartment. Closed the door. The silence returned, but it wasn't empty anymore. It felt familiar. I walked to the table, looked at the notes I had kept. For a moment, I thought about throwing them away, but I didn't. Instead, I added one more. I sat down, took a pen, and wrote, "I'm here." I placed the note near the door. Outside. Inside. Then I stepped back and waited. Not for a response. Just present. The room stayed quiet. But now I understood something simple. The neighbor who was always home was never just in apartment 23. They were in the silence. And the pauses. In the moments people usually ignore. And now, so was I.